Hey y'all. Yeah, so you saw the video title. I want to talk about the movies I watched this last year. I tried to watch 100 movies, and I did not, in a year. I tried to watch 100 movies in a year. I did not make it that far. Now, hold up, let me pull this up. I'm just gonna go over the months I did watch movies, and here it is. 2024. So all the movies I watched last year. I'm gonna kind of go over the months that I watched them, because I didn't watch a movie every month. That was kind of a failure. I had some stuff going on with life, But I want to go talk about all the movies on the list and, how I thought about each one, a little brief piece of each thing. Not exactly a review, but maybe a couple of recommendations, maybe some things you haven't heard of, maybe some things you have seen. You might agree with me. So New Year's resolution last year was to watch 100 movies in a year. So I don't think I got that far. I'll put the number up on screen of how many movies I did watch, probably here-ish with editing. But yeah, so let's start with January. First movie, I actually started the year off on New Year's Eve. I got out of a theater. I was watching the, I guess at this point, new Hunger Games movie, at least. Obviously it's a movie. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's really, really impressive. I'd read the whole book series. I'd only watched the first movie, but I was impressed with how accurate it was to this new movie. Was pretty accurate to the book as far as I remembered, but having read the book, like, a good bit before watching the movie, and obviously now there's been a lot of distance since both things, I was still impressed with how accurate it was. I don't think, pretty much so of my memory, I don't think there was really anything that they made up or changed that wasn't in the book. Maybe they skipped some things, but I didn't remember. I think my one thing with that movie, such a tiny thing that it just, mentally, I imagined the character slightly differently, which is so bizarre, but it's like, who cares? That's not really anything. But there was this one character, the Game Maker. She had a dress, and in the book it's like this, I don't know, it's like the gradient goes the opposite direction than how I expected it to. In the book, I don't even remember exactly how it's described, but it's like blood. It's basically like a red and white dress, but I would think the red should be at the bottom of the dress. I'm not a fashion person. I don't know. Look how I'm dressed. I don't know what I'm talking about. But, that was like my one nitpick with the whole movie, so it was actually really solid. These aren't ranked or anything, but, the second movie in January I watched was actually like a short film. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a film. It was on a streaming, so I think it was on Netflix. It was like a, legit short film. So I'm including these in the films and things I watched, even if I didn't include YouTube films. Mostly because I would be worried that if I say a thing, you couldn't find the movie, because it was a YouTube thing, but I watched so many things on YouTube that I wanted to put on this list, like things I considered films, like short films, and like some features. I watched a couple of Joel Haver, like I mentioned earlier. This is a idea Joel Haver had done. He did some features. I watched, not all of them, I should have, but I watched a short film called The Wonderful Story of Henry Shearer. It was about this, like, guy who could see through the cards. He did gambling and stuff, and he, like, ended up, like, feeling crappy that he, like, made all that money by literally cheating at gambling because he had X-ray vision or something that he got through meditation. It was really cool. It broke a lot of the visual rules of filmmaking, in my opinion, but it was really cool, like, painting, like, it felt like both simultaneously a very new age kind of film, and also something that would have been done at, like, the very beginning of movies, like, with painted backdrops and very theater-esque, I think. I watched the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the new animated one. I've had so many discussions with people in real life about this movie. It is like the perfectly most, not mediocre, but like most inoffensive children's movie. It was like just perfectly inoffensive, if that makes any sense. It wasn't super exceptional, but it didn't like betray Mario fans in any way. Like, there's some modern movies, video game movies that have been coming out, and they've been like totally. You have like so opposite ends of the spectrum. Where you have like the Sonic movie. I haven't seen the Sonic movies, but they're like really good. The fans, it's everything the fans wanted, and they listened to their fans. That's what those kind of movies should be. And then you things like the Borderlands movie, where they just, if you've seen the trailer, if you've seen that, you can, and you know anything about Borderlands, you just know that that's not, just terrible. I shouldn't say any particular films like terrible, but it's like terrible what they're doing to the fans. I don't want to screw myself over in a if I have an industry opportunity, but everyone's got opinions on movies, and you know that's the risk of talking about movies online, especially if you're trying to get into movies. Anyway, but yeah, the Mario movie, pretty good, solid kids movie. Not like I said, just perfectly like vanilla ice cream. That's my friend described it. My friend Alejandro, he's a friend of mine. He was talking about it. Another art student. He was talking about how it's like, okay, if we're talking about like Bluebell ice cream, right? Like certain movies are like, if we're gonna, yeah, basically the Mario movie is like homemade vanilla Bluebell ice cream. Just really good, solid ice cream, but it's boring. You might wanna, if you want something else, you might get a chocolate or something, you know, something like that. Anyway, now I'm gonna list up a couple of these because I had a binge. I watched these all at like when I should have been asleep, honestly. But I watched John Wick's 1 through 4 because that was all that was out. I think the first 3 were on like Netflix or something, and I watched them that way. And I had to buy the other one on Amazon. Anyway, all the John Wick movies as a whole, not a trilogy. I don't know what you call 4 movies in a row. I'm blanking on that. I want to say quadrilogy, but that sounds like made up 100%. Yeah, all the John Wick movies, so well written, so well acted. They're so good. They are obviously a lot of visual effects. But they're like, I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but there's a lot of practical. The VFX aren't blocking anything, as VFX should be. They should be invisible. I've dabbled. You've probably seen some Blender stuff. I just made a Blender film, partial in the CG heavy film with that the salmon, you know, that film I just made. Check that out if you want. After this video. But yeah, watch all the John Wick movies, really well made. One of the, just some of the best action movies I've seen as a whole group. I'm gonna jump back, because it looks like on the list it goes John Wick 1 and 2. I watched another movie in between, and then 3 and 4. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, because I remember watching them all at night, but that's how they're listed in here. The movie in between that I'd watched was Asteroid City, which is a Wes Anderson film, which I don't think I'd seen a new Wes Anderson film. Like, I don't remember watching it when it was new, if that makes sense. This was also, when I watched it was probably out for a bit on streaming. I didn't get to see it in theaters. I really want to watch more things in theaters. Just don't really have the means to. Sometimes it's not money, but like, just, I don't make time to. Or it's like, I feel like movies are a social thing. If I'm going to movies, I like to go with somebody. And I'm just kind of in a weird, like, I don't know. My college town's in a weird spot. The movie theater is kind of not real, if that makes sense. Pretty sure it's like it's a conspiracy theory thing, but I'm pretty sure it's like some kind of front, but not exactly a legitimate business. They're kind of suspicious or something, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that's maybe a video for another day when I do more research on it. But yeah, and then it's close to movie theaters, at least 45 minutes away, so I just don't, back to my hometown, so I just don't really bother going to watch movies in person. I would like to, I just haven't really done it in movie theaters. But yeah, Asteroid City, really good Wes Anderson film. It was something I'd watched when it was relatively new. I really loved the stop motion. There was so much stop motion that, like, some stop motion you wouldn't even have guessed. Wes Anderson has got to be one of my favorite at least visual style directors, up there with my favorite directors and writers. Just really, really whimsical. It took me a solid, good amount of time. I think it was probably a quarter through the movie, or maybe a third through the movie, the first third or whatever, before I realized the thought. Cause the whole gimmick is it's jumping between a theater production and theater production from the point of view as the actors doing a theater production, and then the main storyline of the movie is the theater production being done, and it switches from black and white to color between the two in a very cool way. I'm a big fan of black and white movies, or using black and white as a style that is like, just like, I don't make enough stuff in black and white. I should make like a proper, I did make a proper film in black and white recently, but it didn't feel like my film. It just felt like something I had to do for class, and I kind of should have thought about it more. But I want to make a proper, like, black and white specific movie. Like, maybe a horror movie. That'd be pretty cool. I'd have to look into that. But that's the thing for another day. But yeah, black and white, like, it switched really well, and it was very stylistically, like, distinct. Anyway, I mean, it's Wes Anderson. What do you expect? It's a very well done movie. Then I watched, we watched the first Spider-Man movie after this in January. This is still January. The first Spider-Man movie, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Here we go. Alright. Sorry, you can clearly tell, there's been a cut here. Ooh, look at that, that's good. It's now February recording this, and this has taken way too long on this video because I got distracted by life, and I had way farther in, but I think my camera cut itself off. So I think the last thing I went over the footage, the last thing I talked about was that I had watched, you rambled on about John Wick and Asteroid City for a bit, and then I think glossed over Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire one. Yeah, I watched Kill Bill 1 and 2 after each other. Let me just set this down here. I watched Kill Bill 1 and 2 because it's basically one movie. I think it was the first time I watched it. Very good movie, really good choreography. I quite like it. It's pretty good. But it's not necessarily my favorite Tarantino film. I think I rewatched Star Wars: A New Hope. I've seen it so many times that it didn't really matter very much, but in this context, being January, I think I watched it more to remind myself, because I had gotten into some kind of debate about Star Wars or something, and I was like, yeah, let me rewatch A New Hope. And it's not as, like, looking back outside of nostalgia, the Star Wars franchise is not very good anymore, and that was my opinion was starting to form that in the beginning of 2024. Now, early 25, I am kind of bored of Star Wars generally, and at least I love sci-fi. Sci-fi is a really good thing. It's good stuff, but honestly, I've been getting way more into the Warhammer universe, and I know there's a show in the works. I'm very excited about that. There's so many books and things in that it's just worth. Actually, I might do. Shoot, if this video does well, I might do the same thing, but for books. My books that I've read might be an interesting thing. I could do that. I think I'm gonna do one of these kind of videos every year if I get around to it. But anyway, oh yeah, Blues Brothers. We watched that. That movie that's a banger. That's a certified classic. There's a lot of famous people in that movie, and it's very, very funny. I don't think you can make that movie today. The ending scene, just one of the most entertaining pieces, like entertaining and satisfying conclusions to one of the most chaotic stories that I've ever seen. That's definitely up there for some of my favorite movies ever. Bullet Train. Man, I think I've watched this so many times. I've watched Bullet Train a good amount of times. Bullet Train is currently, it's like when people ask me, oh, what's your go-to movie? What's your favorite movie? I've been saying Bullet Train. That is just a really good movie, really good fight choreography, really good dialogue, really connected. My favorite character is Lemon in that movie. That's actually one of the first times I ever was like, and I don't give a crap about representation in movies as far as like myself, but that character was like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely autistic, and that was pretty cool. That was one of the like first or second times I'd ever watched a movie and was like, oh yeah, that guy's so clearly that thing. But yeah, I actually got into a debate last week with a professor, my screenwriting professor, about a small thing about Bullet Train, and he thought it was just shallow, but I think he is kind of jaded, having been, I got popcorn in my mouth, having been in the industry and a professional and doing stuff, and now a professor teaching writing. I think he's just bored of current movies, and I don't know, anyway, still like a good movie, but I'm sure I'll watch something new this year and think, oh, this might be my new favorite movie. I hope so. It's been my favorite movie for too long. Because being a filmmaker, I'm always changing my opinion on my favorite movie. But, yeah. Oh, I watched The Batman again. I watched it on streaming, and the first time I watched it in theaters, and The Batman is just so infinitely worse of a movie if you watch it on streaming. That is a movie that you have to see in a theater because the compression will ruin the movie. And it's sad. I really wish streaming services would stop fucking over everything with compression, but obviously if you do that, then you take forever to load your movie and it's a pain. So DVDs are awesome, and you should buy DVDs and physical media anytime you get the chance, and like entertainment systems, having a good place to watch a movie is good. Being a college student, I don't have that luxury, but yeah. I watched Spaceballs. That's an old, I don't know if it's a classic, not really a classic, I'm talking about my ass. Spaceballs is a really good movie. I quite like it. A good Star Wars parody. I watched it on DVD, and I watched it. It's because it was on DVD and it was an old DVD, it like shrunk the size of the thing. But yeah, that was all of January. So I'm gonna cut the recording and do each recording should be a new month from here on out. Because January was the time I watched the most movies. I had watched 16 movies in January, if you were counting. Yeah. Let's go. I'm gonna cut this. We're gonna go into February. Okay, back here again. So for February, I'm gonna combine a couple things with February because there's only like 2 things I watched in February and 2 things I watched in March. So we'll just jump over it. February, the first thing I watched in February was the movie 1917, which, for a very long time, until 2025, was my favorite war movie. Very good cinematography. That's the whole appeal of the movie, is it all being in one take, and it's a very tragic story. It's World War II. I'm bad at history. Let's be fair. Let's be real here. But it was a very good movie. You'll have to wait till a whole another year to find out what my new favorite war movie is. Whatever. Anyway, new favorite war movie. And then I watched another movie that was on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, but you watch it because it's kind of a crappy movie and it's kind of campy and stupid. It's amazing how often I find cool, dope, just random movies from social media. People post a clip and it's like, dang, I shouldn't be scrolling, this is a waste of my time. But that's a good movie, and so that leads to maybe, hopefully, less time wasted. I generally would rather watch a longer piece of media that's, like, just okay, or bad, or, like, slightly bad, but in a comedic way, than spend hours watching a bunch of 30-second clips, scrolling and scrolling. So I need to stop. I need to get off those things, but, oh, excuse me. Yeah, Dog Soldiers. That was the movie. I don't think I said the name. It was about these, some kind of European, I don't know. They were on some training mission, and then it went terrible because they were werewolves, and there was another actual team on a mission who were like special forces guys, got murked by werewolves, and then it was really stupid. It was stupid. But there's a cool ass scene. The scene that I saw was these soldiers in like a cottagey home that they barricaded, and he like has a big ass great sword, and like he runs out of ammo. He picks up a great sword and he like murks a werewolf, and it's pretty dope. But the werewolves look goofy as hell, and I'm like 99% sure, but I haven't actually done any research, but I'm pretty sure it was shot on film. I believe it was made in like 99 or 2000, so it was one of those like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to talk out of my ass here, but it was cool, because it was just like, clearly had some kind of CSI. Honestly, it could have been practical, but it could have also, if it was practical, the costumes were just kind of weird and bad. If it was CG, for amateur indie film CG, I believe it's an indie film. God forbid a studio paid for that, but I'm kidding. Everyone's support independent filmmakers, it's great. March, I watched Inglourious Basterds. Good Tarantino film. Killed Nazis, bad, easy, you know. Then I watched Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, which the order of those movies I always get mixed up with, but I'm pretty sure that's like the first one. I don't know, it's a good movie. I like Johnny Depp. Too bad Johnny Depp's not in stuff anymore because of bullshit, but I'm sure everybody knows I'm not getting into that. That was so old stuff. Anyway, then in April I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I just hit my thumb really weirdly. That hurt slightly more than I expected. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a weird movie, weird hippie stuff, fake alt history. Tarantino has done a couple of those alt history things. They're pretty. Ooh, this is a movie. The next thing I watched, The Beatles' Yellow Submarine. It's an animated film, and it's one of those like, what do you call it? Like, one of those movies. There's a phrase for it, and if I remember the name of the phrase, I'll stick it up on the screen in editing. But it was one of those movies you watch that's like you watched it when you were a child, and you like slightly, for most people you'd think would be like, oh, I slightly forgot about the movie, but it was a weird-ass movie, and like, then you see somebody talk about it again, and I'm like, whoa, I remember this, and it was like really trippy and strange. But it was basically, except for me, it's like, at least to me, I feel like it's a cult film. It's something I watched a lot. It was one like when I was like elementary school or whatever. My DVD case has crayon marks all over it, and it was like weird animated movie about the Beatles in a fantasy world where they have to form the Beatles to stop these evil creatures called blue meanies who hate music. And everything's underwater, and it's trippy as hell, and it's like, it's such a weird movie. I always, when I tell people about it, because of how much I love this movie, I tell people, this is like doing drugs without doing drugs. And when I showed some old roommates that I still hang out with and do stuff with, I told, this was before I was 21, but my friend David told me, yeah, this would be a good movie to watch drunk, and man, maybe I do need to, like, hit them up and watch this movie with them drunk, because that actually sounds like that'd be a good experience. I should do that at some point. Anyway, I watched, in exchange for us watching that trippy movie, we watched another stupid trippy movie. That was my friend Jacob's thing he wanted to watch, because he loves the games, and they made a crappy video game version of it. Movie. This is the Monster Hunter movie, and I'll be honest, I don't remember anything because I was yapping so much through it, which I think most of the time is not a good thing. You shouldn't be yapping through movies and not paying attention. But there's situations where it's actually a really, like, it's a good thing to, like, it depends on the social context of who you're watching the movie with. But yapping through a movie with, like, your friends while just shooting the shit is actually a really good experience. Just generally hanging out with friends is a good experience. You know, it's one of those things. Little Shop of Horrors. That movie has some really good puppet work. Sorry, that one's about, if you haven't seen it, there's a weird half-second solar eclipse of the sun. And I actually watched this movie when there was an actual solar eclipse, which was pretty dope. I didn't watch it during the eclipse, because obviously I was outside staring at the sun, being a moron, but I had stuff, protective eyewear for that. But yeah, I watched it because of that movie. Because of the real-life solar eclipse, I watched the movie because there's a solar eclipse that happens in the movie, and then there's an evil plant who, like, does evil things. That's a really terrible way to explain that movie, but the nice thing about that movie is that puppet work is so good, and frankly, I think puppet work should be more of a thing. Even as an amateur VFX artist, writer first, VFX artist some other way down the line. But I've done VFX, so I'm a VFX artist. That's how that works. Not professionally, obviously, but yeah. So my VFX are kind of crap. I say that actually. Shout out to my my film. You should watch it. It's on the channel. Maybe I'll put an iCard, the title, info card, whatever. I don't know where those go. Sailman, salmon, but sail dash man. That's my favorite film that I've made right now, and I love the CG in it. Hopefully to be replaced by another film that I'm working on that's really good. I've only got 3 major things in the works that hopefully will be done you know, somewhere halfway through the year. I'm working on some films for stuff that are going to be really hype. Some really long-term stuff I've posted about teasers that's still in development hell. But yeah, puppet work should make its way back because it's really talented and cool, and sometimes it's better than CG if you're going to overwork this. If you're going to drop a butt ton of money on some kind of effect, I would sometimes rather it, like if it's a creature or something that's on like one central creature, rather it be practical if you can. Like if you can do something practical, do it practical, because I think those old school puppets, those like, even if the creepier looking ones are really cool, and I'd sometimes rather see like a weird puppet thing than a VFX creature, sometimes, or a costume, whatever the thing is. Because, really, I mean, the VFX industry is in a mess. It's because of major corporations, but because you need so much time. Like, the amount of redos that happens in the CGI, like, oh, it's not good enough, redo it, I think ends up taking away from CGI sometimes, to the sense of it'd be better to be a puppet. But yeah, sorry, rant. I mean, that's the whole point. You're watching this video for a rant. I got it mixed up. Oh, The Ridiculous Six, which is a goofy as shit western where there's 6 half-brothers who have to unite to save their deadbeat dad and find money so he doesn't die to a gang, and it's really stupid, and it's definitely worth watching. Because that's another movie they can't make today. Yeah, that movie could not be made today because of the current political climate. But, I don't know, shout out to white guys playing Native Americans. That's pretty funny. When it's done right, I think that can be done well. Even though, actually, in this movie, he's not a Native American, he's a white guy raised by Native Americans, which is its own thing, but to be fair, I was also shouting that out as a bit towards Johnny Depp's The Lone Ranger, because I actually really like his portrayal of Tonto in that. I should be watching that movie this year. So I should sit down so I'm in frame. My camera's set up in the middle of my doorway, so I have to squeeze around. Anyway, I realized I cut off... Why is the chair doing this? The chair's doing this weird stuff. I realized it cuts off about every 10 minutes, so I gotta keep my time short. So basically, it cut off part way through. I think the last thing I talked about was Ridiculous 6, because I started rambling about Renfield and that movie. So we'll just jump back in there and we'll go over for another 10 minutes, or about 9 minutes. Well, whatever, I'm gonna lock in. So, Renfield, painfully average movie, painfully average, crappy vampire movie about this guy who's been working for Dracula for so many years, and he leaves because it's a toxic workplace, and it's violent in a dumb, goofy way that's stupid and really doesn't need to serve the point of the story, because it's really overtly violent, but it's also so blatantly not very realistic. Sorry, my foot is just not very real. It was like not serving the point of the story, and it was just like, we want the rated R thing, but we're gonna make the violent. It was stupid. Still way too violent, but in a very clearly like, yeah, that's not realistic. And then on the exact opposite thing, I watched Nobody, which has, I'm gonna look this up because it's the guy who plays Saul Goodman, and that's the only thing I can think of him. And so I'm gonna look up his name because I need to lock in and remember people's names. Bob Odenkirk, that's his name. I don't know why I'm so bad. Like, if I want to be in this industry, I should know actors' names, and like everybody, I should learn different people's names, because I'm stupid for not knowing that. But yeah, Bob Odenkirk plays like some kind of military, CIA, FBI, some category, who gets his house robbed, and they, among other things, accidentally steal a kitty cat bracelet of his daughter, and then that leads to him rocking the shit of a bunch of generic thugs, and it's very violent, but it's violent in a way that serves the story. It's a little too violent. It's about James Bond, that's not it, John Wick of levels of violence, and it's just like, I don't know if you know, that's, anyway, really good movie, I enjoyed it. And then I watched Top Gun, the first one, and that movie is obviously good. I've seen it a couple of times, so that's not like a first time watching experience, but that movie had, you know, the thing that makes that movie for me, because I don't really care about Maverick's story. I care about Goose, and they set up Goose very well. And then it's very tragic what happens to Goose. But the piano scene and the talk to me Goose scene literally make that whole movie for me. I could care less about you know, Maverick and I'm gonna look up a person because I'm blanking on names. Yeah, Tom Cruise. I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan. His action's kind of mid. I need to lock in and remember actors' names. I watched Spaceman, which was a Adam Sandler movie that was not a comedy. It was a very like serious drama. It was a goofy concept, but it was a serious drama. He's a cosmonaut from some Eastern. He's not Russian. He's some other Eastern European cosmonaut kind of thing. And I'm saying cosmonaut because of the region and not astronaut. I might be wrong if that's not the correct term, but basically he's on a long, several-year mission away from Earth to explore an astronomical anomaly. Let's try saying that 3 times fast. I'm not gonna try. No, I'm not gonna try. That's a waste of time. Anyway, his wife cheats on him and gets pregnant, and they have faster than light telecommunication. And he kind of realizes he's really depressed, being alone and isolated. He's dealing with all of these issues, and then a big space spider comes and hitches a ride on a ship. But for a good amount of the movie, it's like stalking him, and like seems like, oh, is this gonna be a horror movie? But then the spider's actually peaceful, and it teaches him about himself, and the spider, and Adam Sandler's character teaches the spider about what it means to be human, and the spider learns what it means to be human, and the human learns to be human from the spider. He learns about himself, and it's really sad when the spider dies. And I cried And when I told my friends about the movie, they thought it was stupid. They thought it's a dumb concept, and I don't know. But it, it was a genuine, real movie, and I felt kind of emotional about a big ass spider. All right, we're gonna cut it so I have time and it doesn't cut off. Part of that went down the wrong pipe. Speed run through the summer movies. I didn't watch a whole lot. I watched more than I thought, but it was really only within a couple of days. Because I was working at a summer camp, and so I wasn't doing a whole lot. But there was a couple of moments where I was watching. Well, I'll just go through the movies and I'll say the context of when I watched these. I watched Tangled, the Lego movie, and the Lego movie at that summer camp when I had normally it's like the way the camp is structured. You have a week of doing this camp stuff, and then the kids go home and you get your weekend and you go into the town, and it was a town in the middle of nowhere, and so there wasn't a whole lot to do, but you hang out with people that meet people in the camp, whatever. It's a good experience for the most part. But there was a moment where a week that I signed up to do stayover, so I lost my weekend, but I got a big pay increase, and the group was pretty cool. And so I watched with them. They were like high school aged, and so it was watched Tangled and the Lego movie, and obviously there's all this stuff. It was weird because seeing these people, they was like, oh man, they weren't. I mean, I was 21, whatever at this point. Yeah, no, yes I was. I'm bad at things. I turned 21 in June, and this was July's movies because I didn't watch anything in June. Yes. Anyway, so it was different. It's like, oh yeah, these are like, they're like, I don't know, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they're like, oh, even like the things they were seeing about the Lego movie made them feel old, which made me feel old, but it was also like good to see like, at least they weren't brain rotted. I don't know. There was a lot of conversations that weekend about middle school being brain rotted, and it's only getting worse generally through culture. But there's also really good. It just generally looks bad. But the culture of brain rot isn't as bad as it looks outwardly. There's still a lot of really good stuff. It just happens to be what's people talk about, and it gives a bad rep is all of the brain rot. Anyway, we're also on the bus. We did a bus. I did another weekend that was a bus, and we went and picked up the kids from like another city that was a couple hours away, and we were on the bus with really scratched up crappy DVDs, but it was whatever we watched. Oh, actually, that's wrong. I'll just say the bus stuff and then I'll jump backwards. We watched Leap, which was, I think, a French film. A really interesting animated film. I thought it was going to be dumb. I was never not a target audience, but it was pretty good emotionally when it wasn't scratched up and skipping. But I skipped just enough where I think I still got enough of the movie and I considered it. But I think it mostly skipped like a whole scene that was like training montage stuff, so I wasn't. Maybe I'll rewatch it one of these years with a non-scratch disc, but it was like a ballerina thing, and like orphan kid learns to be a ballerina while the other orphan kid wants to be an inventor, and I don't know, it was interesting, I guess. I think the inventor kid works on the Statue of Liberty before it's shipped to America, but as like a low-level intern. I don't know. Kung Fu Panda, and that movie, not gonna say a lot. It's the first Kung Fu Panda. It's pretty good. Jack Black, interesting, and they're making another one, or maybe they did. I don't follow those kind of movies anymore. I'm not locked into like, oh, they announced new Kung. I don't. I think it already came out, and I never heard anyone talk about it, so maybe it wasn't even good. And then I watched Swan Princess, which was one of those same movies like the Beatles movie that I mentioned, but it wasn't a movie that I had a weird backwards nostalgic feeling for. It was like this movie fever dream. That's the term. Fever dream movies. Sorry. Yeah, it was like a fever dream movie that has a weird nostalgic thing. It's like you feel like you watch, but that also might not be the right word, but I'm going to go with fever dream. But it was interesting I don't even know the year, but it's an animated movie about this princess who gets kidnapped and turned into a swan. And then the boy she grew up with, the other prince, who hated her and bullied her, ends up realizing, oh, he actually cared and made it his whole life goal to save her. And then evil sorcerer guy tricked something. I don't even remember all of it, but it was an interesting movie that was like, wow. I wasn't expecting this from something called The Swan Princess. And then let me jump backwards, because this is actually a movie I watched at like past the like bedtime of the children at the camp. The staff would get together and watch movies and stuff, and so it was watched Princess and the Frog in that context. And I had a couple of debates with people about what the message of that movie is. And in my mind, that movie is about the American dream and, like, knowing your values. I don't remember what anyone else said, but it became pretty confirmed in my belief of that. I'm gonna cut it. I don't think I have enough time to do any other thing else, but we'll get. All right, hey. I think I got. I don't want to bother the chair. I just kind of need the space, but I'm just gonna go zoom through August real quick. I just got back from my Dungeons and Dragons game. I wanted to zoom through here real quick before I showered and stuff. Maybe I'll make some more of these. But August, I talked about. I watched Shaun of the Dead, which I think I watched that with my friend, with my roommate. We watched Shaun of the Dead, and then we also watched Zoolander. I watched both of those with my roommate Gavin, and just like I remember these movies. These are really classic movies. Or the things we both had fond memories of, and so we watched those movies. I'm trying to talk about my experience of watching the movie, not necessarily the opinion of the movie itself sometimes, but sometimes those both matter, and like kind of my thoughts going from the movie. But these two are just, hey, it's funny, they're these good movies. When I tried to show him Star Wars for the first time. He hadn't seen the movies. This is a different day. Same friend. The Phantom Menace I started with, and it just wasn't clicking. I don't think he's ever going to be a Star Wars fan, which makes sense considering my viewpoint on Star Wars had been changing. But that's okay. So I wasn't going to be the one who convinced him Star Wars was cool. I watched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I had watched the first and third Bill and Ted movies, but this was the second one, and I didn't have. Finally gave me context for the third one. I saw the third one in theaters, but I didn't get a great experience because I missed the second one, but I had seen the first one. So it was good to get context. The visuals in hell in that movie were really cool, and I really liked the metal hallway. It just looked dope, and I remember thinking, I want to recreate this somehow, this hallway thing. I was thinking in Minecraft, but I never really ended up doing anything with that, which is unfortunate. Then I think my roommate had watched Attack the Clones independently, and so by the time we watched Revenge of the Sith, which is the next movie on the list, he already has a context of Star Wars, but he just didn't really get it, and I really think I should have watched. I realized my order of watching was wrong, but that's okay. Should have started originals, prequels, the shows, starting with the animated Clone Wars and Rebels, but it's okay. Not a huge deal coming off the end of there. I watched this I don't remember. It was moderately late, so I was watching it late, but not 2 a.m. late, but just enough where everyone else was asleep. Watched Darkman. I think I was finishing the movie, and my roommate Hector came back from the gym because he went out to the gym late. But Darkman's a really good movie. Liam Neeson, late '90s superhero movie. He's a burn victim, and then he ends up. I joke about this. He invented, because this concept was basically what would become photo scanning. He basically invented photo scanning before photo scanning was invented, and he instead of it being just 3D models, he printed skin, and he took the bad guys' pictures and then turned it into a model and printed synthetic skin, and they put it over his burned face, but it kept melting in the sunlight, so he had to be quick. He only had like a small window to do whatever his superhero things were, and it was a really cool fight. Good movie, and that was everything I watched in August, I think is what I was on. So, glad I knocked that shit out. Yeah. Oh, I guess while we've got time, in September I watched 21 Jump Street with some friends. There was a lot of people over at the apartment. I was just like there at my apartment, but I didn't realize everyone was going to be over. And I watched this 21 Jump Street movie with them. They were all having a good time and laughing, but I was like, this movie's not it for me. So I'm not a really big fan of that movie. We get to October, and we're almost done with this. And I'll throw the edit together. It'll be good. Solid. Sweet, sweet. Woo! Alright, let's get through October, and this should be October, November, December. We're going to do all of them at once. Alright. 12:58, okay. October, I watched Prince of Egypt. I was on a retreat, and my girlfriend at the time, currently ex, whatever, my ex was, you know, she was singing, she had the Prince of Egypt soundtrack stuck in her head, and I was like, I don't think I've actually properly given it a genuine go to watch this movie, because I watched it in, like, religious education growing up, but I didn't really give a crap. But then I watched it, I'm like, wow, this is a really good movie. So yeah, I watched American Psycho, which I'm not sure how much of it, I don't know, actually, I was gonna yap about how that movie was like, oh, which part are real or whatever, and I know, thinking about it, watching it, I was like, at the very end, I was like, whoa, wait, how much of it was real or whatever, because it's one of those things that's similar to Fight Club, in the way the story's told, and like, the guy's not super well mentally, so, but I don't really care right now. Mortal Kombat, I don't know if there's an older one, but there was a newer, maybe 2020, 2019, something, I don't know when it came out. It was so stupid, and it ain't even, they should have leaned more into the video game stuff. I don't like it. I thought it was going to be better storytelling. Monty Python's Life of Brian was also, well, it was okay. It was okay. It's not nearly as good as Holy Grail. But it was okay. I just was like, you can tell, so British. that's my critique of that. I don't know, I just don't feel like any of these, looking back, I care so much about, to yap about. Except Prince of Egypt was like really good, and I was blown away by that, but, you know, doesn't really seem like it matters. November, I watched Deadpool and Wolverine. It was also kind of a disappointing movie. It was cool to see the character interaction and stuff, but it was also like, why does anyone care about that? I don't know, it was a cool in your face, ooh, action crap, but it wasn't of any substance. Watched Rekindling Christmas, which was a Hallmark movie. I was in on crew. I think there's a scene where I'm an extra in it as well, but I did some crew work on that film, and I never actually ended up watching it until November of 24. Just to see, I basically just ran cards back and forth, but they weren't using SD cards, they were using red cameras, so whatever those are like bricks of whatever. It was cool, it was like my first thing. My mom knew somebody on set, and I was like, oh, I don't know, so but it was a Hallmark movie, so that was a cool experience, but it was also like, gosh, how is this movie, like, you know? I will say, the snow in that movie looks a lot better considering what they tried to do practically with snow. Filming it in Texas, there wasn't, in like the summer or something, it wasn't snow. So they had like sheets on set. I think they ended up just not using any of that, and ended up CGing the snow. The CG snow works really well. I was like, what are they doing? This on set, I was like, this is ridiculous. This isn't gonna work. But it's good to practice things on set. So I'm like shivering. It's like kind of cold. It's not that cold inside. I should turn the heat up. So that was, and then in December, this was on in the background, but I watched the classic Frosty the Snowman animated thing. What is it, like a 45-minute movie? It's not really anything, but it was on in the background while I was playing Magic, and I paid enough attention to it to get through it. Then I watched Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights, which I got for years, would get clips around Christmas time from the movie on like scrolling. I'm like, what is this one scene? It's a Hanukkah film. I didn't realize that until I started watching it. I'm like, well, I'm here. So that was something. I don't know. It was weird. I'm not Jewish. I don't know why I would care. I mean, but it was an interesting animated movie, I guess. I watched Yojimbo, which is a classic. I think it's a classic film. I'm pretty sure classic samurai film. I watched. It was really good. I mean, obviously I was reading more of that movie than watching it. But the dialogue was sparse enough. I could tell what was happening. That I watched it because I was like, oh, I should be watching some more classic stuff, and this inspired other stuff I'm interested in. Like this was an inspiration for George Lucas, and obviously there's that Western movie, American Western, Fistful of Dollars. That's basically a shot-for-shot remake, and there's that interesting history behind that. And then the last thing I watched in all of the year of 2024 was probably the biggest what the heck is this movie disappointment, like nothing happens, this is just depressing kind of thing, which was Mr. Kruger's Christmas. I'll be honest, I don't remember when this movie was made, but it was just about a really depressed, sad old guy for like 45 minutes being slightly schizo and depressing and kind of a creep. And I'm just like, whoa, what is this? What? I don't even know. I kind of started watching it by accident too, because we were like, me and my grandpa watched it, and we were like seeing some clip or something, and I was like, what is this thing? And we ended up finding it by accident on YouTube, so it's so old that nobody's caring about copyright claiming it on YouTube, so I don't know if it's public domain. I don't think it's actually supposed to be in public domain, but Mr. Kruger's Christmas. Yeah, that was my list of stuff I watched in 2024. Now I'll finally get this edit done. This was meant to be done in January, but you know, I'll probably get done next month. So what is it, February? So, you know, I tried to make this. It was something, I guess. Good experience. This should probably be out in March, hopefully. So yeah, 2024 movies. See y'all.